I still don't remember what I said. But anyway, she said, wait right here. She goes and gets the director. And she said, Joni, can you tell the director what you told me exactly? So I went about saying exactly the same thing. I look up. He's pounding the table with tears coming out of his eyes. He's laughing so hard.
La Pizarra, The Slate, exploring creative minds in the entertainment industry. Here's your host, Nikki Mondellini.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of La Pizarra. My name is Nikki Mondellini, and I'm very happy that you're joining us today because I'm going to be talking to the very talented multi-hyphenate Joan Baker. You can find her on Instagram as @JoanTheVoice. She has won multiple Promax and Telly Awards for TV commercials, promos, and documentaries as a voice actor, on-camera host, and producer. Well, many of you know her also as the co-founder of SOVAS, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, which she co-founded with her husband and business partner, Rudy Gaskins, as well as the That's VoiceOver Career Expo and the Distinguished Voice Arts Awards. And today we will hear not only about her amazing career, but also about her work as a professor and coach and a philanthropist. Joan's voice can be heard on ESPN, ABC's The View, HBO, and Grand Theft Auto, among many other things. On A&E, she's the on-camera host for Tribeca Film Festival red carpet interviews. Joan's book, Secrets of Voiceover Success, has opened up boundless opportunities for aspiring voice actors. You'll find the link in the show notes. She is an instructor at Columbia University's graduate drama class, and she shares her expertise with students at New York University, Kentucky University, Actors Institute, and New York's Professional Performing Arts School. She also started a new role as an adjunct professor at the Hart Theater Division at the University of Hartford with the voice acting curriculum. And now, join me in exploring the creative mind of Joan Baker. So basically this is a bilingual podcast and half of the interviews are in English and half of them are in Spanish. And I interview people on both sides of the camera.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. Yeah, I started this in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes. So, we started the State of VO during the pandemic as well, which was a free, it was on Zoom and it was free, but the unique thing about it is that we would basically get buyers and they would offer our audience job opportunities. And we would, of course, talk about the state of VO and the state of the business of VO and also, around the pandemic and all. So I think a lot of great things came out of the pandemic. We really got creative.
I think so.
And soulful.
And I did love those State of VO sessions.
Oh,
yes. I really, I found out like through LinkedIn, I was waiting for Mark Gus to send like the invitation and say, well, just send me a message and I'll add you to the list and whatever. So I was just like hoping to get there on time. And because I guess you guys also had like a limit of people that you could allow in. Right?
Actually, I'm not sure if at first we did, but no, as time went on, no, not that I know of. It was unlimited. As a matter of fact, we would get crazy. We would get like 500 people confirming, but then maybe 200 would show up. So whatever we got confirmed, we got half that would show up.
Got it.
So no, as far as I know, we were set for unlimited. And the piece de resistance to me, although this person wasn't offering a job, but Nancy Cartwright.
Ah, yes.
It took me 2 years to pursue her to be on that show.
Oh my God. Wow.
2 years. When I resonate with something, I will pursue it until it comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm. I'm really happy that you do that because you brought great content and great opportunities for everyone in those sessions and in everything you do. I mean, we're going to backtrack a little bit and start talking about the start of your career. So how did it all begin for you? I mean, was it someone in your family and it was just part of what you'd seen growing up or?
Actually, no. My mom, though, was very show busy, dramatic. So I had that. And I had an uncle who I always heard about, and he was a dancer in the Lido. and on the Lido stages, all over the world. And so I had that, but it was literally my dreams since I can remember. And so, as a kid, like one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to be a dancer, I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to be a humanitarian. So I even remember in kindergarten, the teacher would ask, what does everyone want to be? And start around the room. And you would literally hear kids go, I want to be a piece of green bread. I'm not sure how I coined humanitarian because I'm sure I didn't know that word in kindergarten, but I definitely wanted to help and assist people in their lives. Mm-hmm. I even had a dream about it that I used to kind of fantasize about. And I did bring this to a therapist before, but the dream was I was, standing in front of people in the Army and the Navy, right? And I guess I was dancing and giving whatever I was saying in front of the microphone, I was giving. And the men were kind of wounded around me, but happy, but wounded. And so it was kind of a dream that I carried around, or a fantasy that I carried around, but I didn't know what it meant. I just knew that I wanted to perform and help people.
Yeah. Well,
when I brought it to a couple therapists, they're like, the masculine side of you is wounded. That's what I got.
Oh, okay. I was going to go for you're remembering a past life when you were performing for the troops,
Exactly. No, exactly. But I brought it to a couple therapists, not asking for their analysis, but just talking about it. And I got that more than once. The masculine side of me was somehow wounded, and in my lifetime, I would need to heal it. Now, what I interpret that is some masculine qualities, right? So maybe, even though I don't have a problem pursuing, but usually that would be coined something masculine. Not necessarily now, today, since things are a little bit more balanced and equal, and we can love our athletes that are women and love our athletes that are male, and it doesn't have to be like weak women and strong men, right? But when I was growing up, of course, and all through adulthood, basically, certain things are coined as masculine. And pursuing something or pursuing a career would be considered one of them. But I've never had a problem with that because in my mind, that's all I had. I grew up in the civil rights era in the 60s. And someone like me, meaning someone biracial, my dad white, my mom black, did not have an easy time out there in the world. Did not have an easy time with even our next door neighbors, did not have an easy time with school teachers. If anything, in my schooling situation, I became very shy and inhibited because when there was attention on me, it was kind of negative. Mm-hmm. So I began to not know how to deal with this, but I began to make my own way in terms of I did things that would draw attention in a positive way. And one of those things was being involved in acting. And one of those things was being involved with dance because I would get positive attention, but like beyond my wildest dreams. So not only did my dream start without knowing those responses, my dream was to be an actress, dancer, humanitarian. But then as I ventured out in school and into the world, that got me positive attention. Because if I showed up on my own, not demonstrating any talents or anything, it was not pretty. And so, I would go home at night, as this is when I was in school, elementary school, junior high, high school, and cry myself to sleep because it just seemed to be unfair. And I didn't want to tell my parents because I felt embarrassed. And I felt like they would be embarrassed too, not knowing that isn't the truth. But I never said anything to anyone. And also, I also found it interesting that very few people would, come to my rescue and stand up for me. I barely could stand up for myself, but it just surprised me that people that I invested my time in, my friendship, all kinds of things when I was a kid, they couldn't deal with it either. Even though we were friends and we were good friends, people couldn't deal with it either. And there were some ugly things said to me, all through childhood from adults and kids. So it was not easy. I left Marin County, which is where I'm from. Marin County's in Northern California. Beautiful area, beautiful, homes and beautiful all kinds of things, but just not necessarily for me. I left and went to New York when I was 19 years old, and I've been here ever since.
Mm-hmm. And you had what brought you there was an audition for the Alvin Ailey, or had you auditioned from them before?
Actually, I auditioned once I got to New York.
Okay.
So I hadn't auditioned in California. I had a boyfriend. This took me forever to get a boyfriend, but I had a boyfriend when I came to New York, and he was also a dancer. He actually did audition for School of American Ballet, which is also called SAB, and it's New York City Ballet Schools. I mean, it's an incredible scholarship. He got paid to be at the school every month, but he auditioned before we went to California. I mean, before we went to New York, and then I auditioned once we got to New York for Alvin Ailey. And I did get a scholarship, and it lasted about 2 years. The scholarship was worth, and this again was in the 80s. The scholarship was worth $1,300 a month. That was a pretty big scholarship to have, especially back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most in my life. It is probably one of the top 3 most intense things I've ever done. And I'm sure it prepared me for other things that I've been doing in my life, but it took me 10 years to kind of get over the intensity. Also, there was also negativity in dance in general. And I don't know about today's world in dance, but certainly when I was coming up in dance, there was a lot of negativity in dance. So I kind of went from one negative experience into another, but there was results that I got from Alvin Ailey that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else because it's so intensified. Dance in itself is a very intense art form. Yes. You cannot screw around with dance if you want to be a dancer. So I also developed a lot of discipline. That's also helped me. And it's probably why I gravitated to it anyway, because it has that quality to it. But and that's helped me in my, later years in life. Totally.
I can definitely see that because being there at the level of expertise that is required to be in such a prestigious dance company, it is really tough. And so, of course, being there, it's something that you can definitely translate and see into your other art disciplines.
Yes, exactly. Dance, has really made such a difference. And I could see how it would make a difference in other areas in show business, because again, you're bringing that discipline and that focus. Mm-hmm. And you can't beat that combination if you really want to succeed. There are no excuses. Also, there is not, I don't feel like it today, and then you don't. You might not feel like it, and that's fine, but you still do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it kind of, dance does create kind of a different human being, right? Yeah. And also dance is really about self-discovery. And I find that same thing in voiceover, that same quality of self-discovery for excellence, to bloom, to blossom. And then also the excellence is something you want to pass on and share. Mm-hmm.
And how was it that you went from dancing into your other disciplines that you do? I mean, you've been hosting and presenting, producing, and of course, voiceover. So how was that transition for you?
Actually, I didn't even think about it. It's kind of like, if this thing needed to be done, I'll do it. It's just like what I do in Sovas. There's so many hats that I wear. It's like, this thing needs to be done. I need to learn how to kind of do PR. Let me dig in my heart. Like, for example, I love people. And I've always loved people, no matter what has happened to me. I've always loved people. And I really use that quality to do many things. My love of people, and also my love of learning, and also my love of focus and seeing things through in a way that has the results of joy, not just for me, but for others. But I when I was young, I was also a kid actor. So I was on a kid show called Whatchamacallit. And it's nowhere on the internet, of course, because there was some kind of fire. So a lot of things, and this was in San Francisco, and it was at a main channel, Channel 5, KPIX Channel 5, and there was some kind of fire, and it destroyed all the footage.
Aww.
And I was on that show.
What a shame.
For a good 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I replaced an original. So there was 4 kids on the show, 1 girl, 3 boys. I replaced the original. They looked all over Northern California for that replacement. And I had an agent. I had an agent in San Francisco. So I got called to go to the audition. I went to the audition and I noticed there were all these kids in the lobby. It was in a Victorian house, which is very San Franciscan. And so there was all these kids in the lobby. And I had an appointment, so I went right in. And the producer was talking to me, and to this day, I cannot remember what I said. But the producer said to me, so Joni, she said, tell me about your day. So I'm telling her about my day, and I look up, and she is pounding the table with tears coming out of her eyes. I still don't remember what I said. But anyway, she said, wait right here. She goes and gets the director, and she said, Joni, can you tell the director what you told me exactly? So I went about saying exactly the same thing. I look up, he's pounding the table with tears coming out of his eyes. He's laughing so hard. Next thing you know, I'm on the show.
Wow.
It's never happened again, Nikki, but never happen again.
But it's one of those beautiful moments that had to happen, and it just, it just blossomed out of it.
It just happened. I know. And also because I dreamt about being an actress every single day of my life. And I had just done the Shakespeare Festival, and this is in Northern California. I was in one of the shows. I was determined to get an agent. So once I got the agent, and then I got this audition, and then I was just determined. And I didn't know any fears. I didn't know any of that stuff. So it was all kind of bravery. This is my dream. I've always wanted this since I can remember. And it was incredible.
Talk about manifesting from an early age, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so on that show, not only was I a regular actress on it, we also used to write the show. So I had some kind of, instincts around writing, because I always tried to do funny things, and they always picked my stuff. So I did host different segments. Like one time I interviewed went to Barnum and Bailey Circus. The makeup artist did my makeup as a clown. I interviewed the oldest clown in the world, the youngest clown in the world, the first man clown. I was in the circus as well as they were taping me. And I heard a neighbor. Now, this circus was far away from where we lived. I heard someone go, Joan Baker, is that you? And this is out there in the circus, and I have makeup on and a clown outfit. It was kind of funny. So it's like I said, like there was a lot of negativity just by showing up. But somehow I was bound and determined to create positive things, or to create things that I could love and enjoy, and I can honestly say that I did. And so that traveled with me to New York. But again, it was the same kind of diving into these experiences in New York, especially when I first got here, in terms of training and developing myself, that they were harsh. And it's funny because the first 10 years I was in New York, I said, Marin County did not prepare me for the level of competition and how to behave in a competitive setting, as opposed to shrinking, which is how I felt. I saw people, and they were all from New York, right? They had the competitive spirit that was quite amazing and beautiful to see. Not scary, not negative, but really powerful. And I had wished that there was something like that where I grew up, because it really took me a long time to cultivate that spirit without feeling like I was hurting people. Or somehow I was getting ahead and with somehow an unfair advantage. There were a lot of lessons on my path.
And
no question about it.
Why would you say it was an unfair advantage? I mean, you were clearly there at the right place at the right time. You had worked very hard for it.
Well, I'll say what I mean by unfair advantage is that I used to think that if you were competitive, that somehow that was an unfair advantage. That's how little I knew about competing or being in a world like dance that's very competitive, but how I just didn't quite understand it. No one talked about it where I grew up necessarily. Things were given to people. You didn't necessarily have to fight for it or knew what that meant. Other than that, it was kind of a scary thing to compete. So I brought those myths with me, and I have busted those myths over and over and over and over again for myself, but that's what I brought to New York. So it kind of made me feel small and shrink, then rise to the occasion. So when I got a scholarship at Alvin Ailey, I was shocked because I know that my little tag said like 435. I was the 435 person auditioning for a scholarship, and there were people well after me. And there were 30 people that got this scholarship. So I was actually stunned.
Yes.
Stunned.
Yes.
I wasn't exactly like, whee, like soaring at the audition. I was really nerve-wracked and nervous. But one of my goals and one of my dreams was to be in Alvin Ailey, although that didn't happen. But getting on scholarship at the school was like I was a performer in Alvin Ailey. 5 classes a day, 5 days a week. That did not include nighttime. It was no joke, Nikki. And I studied ballet, 2 types of modern, jazz, and ethnic, and Dunham, which is a very intensive ethnic dance brought to the United States by Catherine Dunham, which is why it's called Dunham technique. But it's Caribbean and African.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually one of my favorite techniques there is in dance, as well as Catherine Dunham, who has passed away. But when I saw her, because Alvin Ailey brought a lot of teachings to us, teaching us about Black history, but, Black history in dance and all that. So when I saw I walked into a classroom at Alvin Ailey, which is truly huge and gigantic. And the whole wall was covered, wall-to-wall pictures of Catherine Dunham. I saw who she was and what she was doing and how she was doing. I go, that's me. Very theatrical. Very like soloist. So I always have seen myself as a soloist type, although very much embracing an ensemble. But my style has always been one that's kind of a little bit more unique, where when you're in an ensemble, everyone has to look alike, dance alike, all that. And so that's how I saw myself. And that's how I trained myself like a soloist.
And from there, what happened for you to start going the path of voiceover performing and in different ways, not as a dancer, but going in and then now using other parts of your elements, your voice, your whole presence. How was that for you?
Well, when I was dancing, I also did a lot of performance theater in New York. And if you're not in New York, it's a huge avenue. And it's a huge kind of freeing creativity and discipline. And actually, you can do a lot of your own stuff when you're doing I don't know if you would call it performance art, but that's what I'm going to call it. And it was all in downtown New York when it was really, really big. So I used to dance. I used to do Josephine Baker, right? Jean-Claude Baker discovered me coming into the restaurant when it just opened. And I was there because Interview Magazine was doing a piece on me. This is when I was 26. So through that journey of Josephine Baker, I also, created a nightclub act, and that gave me a lot of experience doing that. I did that for 4 years. So after the Josephine Baker, and I also did so many other things performance-wise, especially in downtown, which was huge, right? So after I decided I wanted to kind of let go of Josephine Baker because I didn't necessarily want to do that scene the rest of my life. I really did want to get into, showbiz and get paid. Right. So what I did was my dance teacher at the same time had left. My dance teacher was extraordinary, a legend in the field. So she retired or moved. So I was at a kind of a downswing in terms of dance. And I decided at that time that I was going to do acting, since I had always done that and, as a kid and all. And I still wanted to do that as an adult. So what I did was I somehow stumbled upon a manager, and the manager said to me, I got you an act and it was cable, but before cable was cable, on this show called Tucci Live. And she was a real ball buster character, right? So he said, she wants you to create a character and talk about the nightlife in New York. And he knew that I had come from nightclub in New York. So it would be an interesting perspective. So I did that.
But I mean, I came up with this whole character voice and,
this whole costume, talking about, Madonna and all the people that were popular at the time in the nightclubs. So after that show, I was sitting in his apartment and I was looking at Backstage magazine, and I saw an ad that said voiceovers. It said straight voice, character voice, and something else. So I decided I was going to take lessons from her just to see what it was about, because I only knew voiceover to be cartoon at the time. I didn't even know you could make a living at it. I knew nothing. So I took 4 lessons with her and I did a demo reel. This was in 1990. And so 1991, I started at the top of the talent agents and I worked my way down in New York. But the first 3 wanted to sign me off my demo reel. My demo reel would not work today, but at the time, every single voice on there was a character voice, completely different. It actually sounded like, every spot sounded like a different person, right? And then I had some of my regular speaking voice in there. So there was a cat fight to sign me. I eventually signed with Don Buchwald and Associates. I signed on Valentine's Day, 1991. And so as soon as I signed, one of the agents said to me, you're going to have to change your demo reel. I was like, really? He said, yeah, don't worry. They'll be all with real jobs, but it'll be your regular speaking voice. It won't be all the cartoons you did. I was like, oh, I literally did not know the industry at all. But right away, I started working, literally right away. I even booked a national commercial right away. And then I started doing promos right away. And I didn't even know it was promo. I had no idea. I just loved the fact that nobody was trying to figure out from my looks where I would fit in. Mm-hmm. Everywhere I went, people, talent agents, shows, whatever it may be, not in performance art, but in other legitimate kind of places. They were always trying to figure out how I would fit in. And almost always I never fit in. So in voiceover, that was not happening. And I was going out for on-camera commercials too, but that was not happening. I can't tell you how happy and free I was. It was literally like a horse that the gate just opened and the horse just took off. Mm-hmm. I pursued everybody with my demo reel, and my agent at Don Buchwald gave me her Rolodex. And I took her Rolodex, and I'm not kidding you. I went, and it was in alphabetical order, and there was a lot of people in each in each alphabet. I dropped off my tape to every single person on that Rolodex. See, this is where the discipline comes in. Uh-huh. And this is where feelings stopped in your life. And now, for whatever reason, the gates opened. So I really showed up 100% full throttle for myself, and it paid off right away. I didn't know the rules, and I certainly didn't think I was bothering anyone, since people do hire talent, right? So there was no barriers. And so right away, I started building a career, and I can't tell you how happy I was.
And this is where we end part 1 of the interview with the amazingly talented Joan Baker. Stay tuned next week when we will hear the rest of this conversation. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast player or YouTube if you haven't done so. Share what you liked about this episode on social media and tag us at Nikki Mondellini.